I think that it's clear from all the inputs that we've heard up to now in this important policy conference that the economy is taking center stage for very, very good reasons. One is that the well-being of our people depends on the economy performing and also becoming more inclusive. But at the same time, I think that we also know that we have some very, very serious economic challenges. We've passed through into a technical recession, but even if we do not have a recession, the growth forecasts for this year, following on from the poor performance last year, are not very encouraging. So I think that that is the situation that we find ourselves in. I think myself that we've got a combination of global factors and also, though, some domestic factors that we've got to address. And those domestic factors, I think, are probably the ones that loom largest at the moment. We have a very low level of investor confidence, a very low level of consumer confidence. And I think the task of creating a higher level of more inclusive economic growth does depend on us finding each other, finding business, finding labor, finding government to work together around common endeavors to place our economy on a higher growth trajectory, and one that is more inclusive than the trajectory that we've been on up until now. And so every year at the World Economic Forum, on the margins of it, the Oxfam releases a report in which they say how many people in the world own as much wealth as the poorest half. And the numbers have now gone down from triple figures to double figures. It's less than 100. That's the figures, that's what we're talking about. That's the world that we're in. And I think that, what does this mean for us? It means that we've actually got to have, and here comes the phrase that we're all using, we've got to have a radical approach to economics. We can't be carried on as we have been because the changes that we're going to face are disruptive. Now, the definition that's been around on radical economic transformation, we've got to bring about fundamental changes in the productive structure of our economy and also in the patterns of ownership, participation, and management in favor of the majority of the population. That's what we've got to do. We've got to bring about a radical change in our productive structure and in our patterns of inclusion. We've got to bring this about to place us on a different kind of growth path which can deliver higher levels of more inclusive economic growth. If we don't do this, we're not going to be in a position to solve the problems of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. I think that's what's staring us in the face. And our approach is development integration, which means that we have to ensure that the trade integration is complemented by infrastructure development, which means both trade facilitation issues, improving procedures, as was mentioned by First National Bank, and actually building the physical infrastructure. Because one of the things, we are now learning from our colleague, the Premier of the Western Cape, that we need to understand what colonialism did and didn't do. The infrastructure of colonialism on the African continent was to take the raw material from the mine to the port and out of the region, not to connect up the economies one to another. So if we want to trade among ourselves, we've got to address that infrastructure deficit that connects our economies up one with another. And we've also got to cooperate to create the emergence of value chains in the continent.